All right. Once again, thank you very much for having me today. This afternoon, my name is Kay Kalpulugtu. I'm the founder of A Plate of Bahay Kubo. And this afternoon, I will share more on food innovation and sustainability in a pandemic era. Now, A Plate of Bahay Kubo is a Manila-based pandemic-born initiative promoting plant-based food using traditional food technologies. I've put this up to encourage and to share my advocacy in consuming plant-based food, not just for good health or sustained good health, but also as our contribution to our environment. We advocate for food innovation, security, and sustainability through mindful eating. So this is really more in terms of understanding the makeup of your food, what the food has gone through in the process prior to reaching it to your dining table. And just to give context on the title or the name of this A Plate of Bahay Kubo, really, it is a local folk song taught to us while we were in kindergarten schools. And it essentially emphasizes that doing backyard gardening is sustainable enough and nutritious enough, really, to put food at our plates. Hence the name A Plate of Bahay Kubo. So it talks about your plate and eventually your fate. All right. Now, the pandemic has obviously disrupted how we consumed food or how the way we consume food and the process. In fact, according to a Rakuten survey held last year in the Philippines, 71% of us have actually been ordering food online. Ordering food online has been a way to cope or a mechanism to cope during this pandemic. Aside from cooking our own meals, we found refuge or it's a good respite in this time of pandemic to order our favorite foods online and deliver it to us. Of course, there is also the concept of convenience and instant gratification, so much so that 74% of all of us in Asia Pacific are now cooking meals from meal kits. I will talk more about this and how the retail side of food has actually innovated in the process. But this study has been done by Global Data last second quarter of this year, covering Asia Pacific region. Now, do we know what goes behind the scenes, right? When we order food or when we make our meal, do we know what was the effort needed in order to bring to us the food that we were craving? And what were the resources needed to do so? It's important and it's actually very helpful to understand that whole end-to-end life cycle. As far as our eating or consumption would be concerned, you will realize that it's a big production number in the process, and that there's many ways where we as consumers can contribute in decreasing impact to the environment and to many other things, really, at the end of the day, as I go through these slides. And at this point, I want to share with you really the life cycle of a meal. What happens when we order our favorite food online, or when we prepare our favorite dish, for this weekend, for example. Many things actually, it emanates, or it starts from, getting the raw materials, or you extract the raw materials needed. Of course, that goes through a certain level of processing, right? From processing, farming, the food or the ingredients are manufactured to come up with the overall product. And then it goes through a distribution process, going to the retail outlets, going to us as consumers, and then we prepare, we create a meal out of it, and then we nourish our body in the process. In fact, when you look at this left side, when you look at this angle or this element, the preparation stage, we will generate waste in the process. And this waste actually becomes an input to the waste system going to our environment, the landfill. It could be, recovered as energy, recycled, converted in the end, again, as feed, which becomes an input to the farming process. So there's that kind of life cycle in the process that happens when we create our meal. Now, is this a sustainable food system? You may be wondering. According to the World Food Program, although our current food systems are producing enough food to feed the planet, around half of it comes at the expense of the planet. So there's also that environmental impact that we all need to be aware of, and we may be already feeling the consequences of such action. So the World Food Program has highlighted all of these impact actually, from our climate, our human health, the biodiversity loss, pandemic, and obviously the economic impact in the process. And that is why they have been advocating for planet-based diet. It's essentially about understanding what the food has gone through, the impact on the environment, the agricultural land that it has been, toiled, or in the perspective of grazing cows, the land that they have been in to produce the meat later on. That would be your ribeye steak, for example, right? So there's a lot of information available at WFP looking at plant-based diets if you need more information. Now, I'm sharing this because this is the other side of the story in terms of food innovation, the impact of it. And this is when I go to the food innovation concept already, highlighting in the life cycle that I showed earlier, the many areas where innovation could happen, right? I mentioned the sourcing, where exactly do we get our raw materials? Where is our source, right? The processing, what is the level of the processing made on the raw material prior to making the overall finished product? For example, does it go through heavy kind of processing or very minimal to zero processing at all, right? How we distribute the food, how much time does it require to bring the food from point A to point B? Okay, and then in the retail outlets, from restaurants to supermarkets down to community commerce. Community commerce has been actually the market's pandemic response on how we buy our produce, really. And while online you can buy online, there's also the emergence of what we call community commerce. We refer to this as really neighborhood or within your area kind of commerce or trading. It simplifies the process. The supplier could be very near. There's a little bit of premium, but that's another conversation altogether. Okay. On the packaging side of things, are the materials used to package the food, can it be recycled? Is it environment friendly, or are we adding more to waste? Okay. And then lastly would be the preparation. How much time, or what are the steps needed to prepare the food? Right? Do you get food crates delivered and you are the one preparing, or do you reheat them when you get the meal kit, for example? So there's many ways to innovate the food process within the life cycle, and this innovation actually becomes an input to our overall goal of making ourselves or our country food secure and food sustainable. Essentially in the process. Now, what are the examples? What are the examples of how we can do innovation for food? One example is in sourcing. Okay, so backyard gardening has been a pandemic response as well. It talks about really the ability to grow our own vegetables and herbs, which play a huge part in decreasing sourcing requirements. So, for example, herbs such as rosemary, thyme, dill, even local herbs that also have medicinal benefits. That is also a good way to do food innovation, it touches definitely on sustainability because you're able to somehow grow your own food by not being dependent on the market or on suppliers to give you all these herbs that you need in preparing your meals. Another example of sourcing is fermentation. Fermentation is really a traditional food methodology used for the longest time to create many things. I am sharing here an example of fermentation, which is really kombucha making, but there are many other examples of fermentation. So we ferment bread, for example. Bread is an example of a fermented product because we use yeast, right? We also ferment many other things like kimchi, right? Sauerkraut is also a fermented product. But essentially, the concept of fermentation is in using a good kind of bacteria. In the case of kombucha, it is called SCOBY, where a new product is formed in the process. So fermentation as a process also is experiencing kind of a renaissance during this period because number one, you can make it at home. You can make many other products out of it. I personally make my spiced condiments such as spiced vinegar using kombucha, right? And the health benefits cannot be ignored. It's very good for gut health, rich in probiotics. That is why, there are opportunities in the market where food manufacturers actually make their beer, with probiotics included. So they call it like some sort of a kombucha beer or ginger beer as an example as well. Yeah, so that's an example of a sourcing feature, an example of food innovation in sourcing your material. The next one is in processing. How can we innovate our food from this processing stage, creating a product, converting it from product A to product B? One example here is the work that has been done by, the very great Maria Orosa, which really is a World War II hero for all of us here in the Philippines. She headed the Bureau of Plant Industry during her time. And in fact, during the war, she was helping to transport food to our soldiers, underground. And as the head of the BPI agency in the Philippines, she made sure that the food was nutritious enough to make sure that the soldiers have the energy needed, when they go to battle. Now, what was her legacy? What did she do? How did she innovate food processing during her time? So she created a lot of food products that are still being used here in the Philippines. One example of this is the creation of banana ketchup, right? We all know that ketchup technically is made from tomatoes, but Maria Orosa pioneered the creation of this condiment, this ketchup condiment, by using bananas, which is really an abundant resource in the Philippines. So she was always creating products from easily accessible materials and products native to the Philippines. And because of that, we enjoy all of her food legacies at this point. All right. Another example of processing innovation, or the lack of it really, is in raw food. Okay. Raw food essentially requires very little processing, very minimal actually. That's the reason also why it's called raw food. It does not require a huge amount of effort to prepare. So for example, in the picture you see, like a rainbow, beautifully colored meal. And I would imagine this is like some sort of yogurt with, lots of berries and fruits that was, to make this a delicious and nutritious meal. It is also very good for clean eating. It does not cause any harm to your body because the ingredients are very much simple and basic. All right. Another example of food innovation in retail is in meal kits. So this is again a pandemic response to the market, because of the lockdowns, many of us are unable to go out, and restaurants and establishments have to find ways in order to make sure that they can still sustain the business at this point in time. Hence the creation of meal kits. So ramen restaurants pioneered, making ramen meal kits available. But in the market, there are already a slew of meal kits available for whatever food preference you may have. Um, it's essentially also transforming the dining experience to make you feel that you are also dining out while you're at home. That's really the whole point of this innovation. And we also see that there is, in terms of reach, there's also the emergence of household cooks and bakers through community commerce. So it's not only restaurants and establishments that are doing this, but really home cooks or home-based cooks that have ventured into food business during the pandemic. We have what you call available party trays or lifestyle party trays, where different kinds of food are made available depending on the celebration that you have, or in fact, even if you don't have a celebration, it's just like a midweek or an end of the week or a weekend. And, this is really how we cope. And it's a reason to feel that we're dining out, when we have this meal kits and lifestyle trays available. Okay. The next one is in packaging, and this is a very interesting aspect of the when we talk of the life cycle of a meal, because this is where many opportunities actually come up. Of course, the idea is it's sustainable. We really try to avoid using plastics, especially single use. No single-use plastic. So this is a good space to look into in terms of opportunities. It's a market response also to the customers and consumers who are more into this kind of packaging, right? Millennials and digital natives, they all prefer this because of its visual appearance. Of course, it looks way beautiful compared to putting that in a plastic container, microwavable tubs, and then sending it out for delivery. The idea really is that the customers can take an Instagram or can take a photo and post it on their social media platforms like Instagram, and then curate beautiful content in the process. So the visual appeal is one, but of course, more importantly, the packaging being environmentally friendly, eco-friendly, also add to the appeal of businesses switching to sustainable packaging. In terms of premium, of course, when we think of Mother Earth and the impact that we bring in the process in creating our food, customers are more or less willing to pay more just to have this kind of packaging, and also as a contribution to society in terms of reducing the waste that they generate in the process. How do we sustain this? We can sustain this by doing early education and information campaigns to the markets. Of course, the younger generation are so much more, I would say, aware of this. They see this in their feeds, they see this in their platforms. But I think collectively, it's an opportunity really to influence the markets across generations, not just on the millennial and the digital natives space. So these are the examples, and there are many more other examples available, but I've highlighted in the process some of the innovation examples that we're seeing at this point in the many areas of the life cycle of a meal, right? The intention really is to make all of us think where we can apply our own innovation in the process as consumers, and as mindful eaters. I go back to what the World Food Program has been advocating all along on the concept of planet-based diets and the impact that we can, give or we can provide in the process. So there are many areas that we can take away with us right now, think about it, and see how our decisions can impact Mother Earth. Now, having said that, I want to go into the opportunities available in the F&B space at this point of the, while we are in the middle of the pandemic. And really, the objective is to help protect our environment and at the same time optimize our health at this point in time. So, what are these opportunities and how can we take advantage of this? Number one, there's definitely an opportunity to increase awareness and education. Eating is not really just a function of, you know, uh, putting food into our mouths and nourishing our bodies, but really it's more of understanding what happens behind the scenes. What are the resources needed to really bring to you the food that you like? Like I said earlier, it is a big production number, and that the market, the companies will dictate or will give us what we need based on what they see that we do, right? So there's that opportunity to increase awareness and education. We can start in schools, in grassroots level, even within our family or friends. Really, anyone around us, we can start having this conversation. As far as how we can help protect our environment and optimize our health in the process. There's also opportunities in creating food products that would cater to many dietary options, vis-a-vis mindful eating. So before I go to the many options available, what is really mindful eating? Mindful eating is, like I said, understanding what has gone through at the back, behind the scenes, in preparing your food. When we are mindful and conscious of what has the food gone through, I think it will impact or it will affect the decisions that we make when it comes to choosing the food that we eat. Now, there are various options available for consumers to encourage mindful eating, and these are many dietary preferences out there, really. There's plant-based, where an individual eats more vegetables and fruits and alternative protein sources. There's also planet-based, and this is coming from the World Food Program, where it is more environmentally based decision in terms of the land use, agricultural land, in terms of the impact on the greenhouse effect. So that's one. Whole foods, meaning not using a lot of processed ingredients, I would say, and many other things. So there's that opportunity to create food products that would cater to all of these different dietary preferences. Meal kits, celebratory lifestyle party trays are very much needed and available these days. I mentioned about ramen kits. It goes to many dishes, really. Restaurants, other establishments are now making these things available. We are already in the Philippines. The Philippines is the country that celebrates Christmas the longest, and at this point, there's many celebratory meals available to celebrate the season. So there's that opportunity for business people to look into in the F&B space. Packaging, definitely catering to the appeal and it being eco-friendly. So many materials available. In fact, some of those materials are very native to the Philippines. You would look at cornstarch or corn from sugar bagasse, many other things that can be considered in creating the packaging suited for your food product. Of course, community commerce and neighborhood dining experience. This is what has been transforming as of late. Of course, because of the impact of the lockdowns, people are kind of wary in terms of going out, to the main city area, or to the where the used to be the traditionally weekend spot, for example. And because of that, it has given rise to what we call the community commerce, where the commerce or the trading really happens within the area where you live, or a certain radius from where you live. And because of that, it also became an input to now having sort of neighborhood or hole in the wall dining experience within our area as well. And food trucks, or like really food that's made available from a jeep, even within the village. That is an opportunity that has still, very much a lot of space for people to get into. Again, it's because people are still wary of going out there and prefer to just being, within a bubble, within a certain, I guess, geographical bubble that's controlled by local city governments, that's also aligned with city health protocol. So in a nutshell, I've shared the food innovation that also becomes an input to food security and sustainability while we are in the middle of the pandemic. I hope that you have learned a thing or two that you can take with you. And with that, I would like to say thank you very much and maraming salamat po. For more information, you can visit A Plate of Bahay Kubo in our social media platforms. Thank you very much and God bless.